So, Chris, it's good to have you on the podcast Built, Trusted, Chosen today. I'm really honoured to have you on the show. I realise you've been podcasting a long time and speaking about some great topics that I think our audience is going to love. But just so people know who you are, real quick, if you want to just introduce yourself and who you are, what you do, just briefly, we'll unpack it as we progress, of course. So over to you, Chris.
Sure. Thanks, Wes. I'm glad to be here. I'm the host of Hard Hat CEO, which is a podcast about getting out of swinging that hammer and pushing that broom and actually becoming the CEO of your company. And the reason I got here, because I actually learned the hard way. Actually, back in 2017, I damn near died and realized that I was in a coma and my family was stuck with all this stuff they had to do because everything was in my head. And I saw a good place to be. They were dealing with me being sick and then dealing with all these other people calling and not knowing what to do. So I realized sitting there in the hospital once I woke up that that wasn't fair to them and not very good for me either. I mean, I was obviously stressed. And so I became the CEO of my company, and I'm sharing with others how to do that as well.
That's fantastic. Obviously, a lot of us learn, a lot of the lessons we learn the hard way, but certainly yours sounds like a really difficult scenario. And I suppose most of us start in business where we're trained in the skill set that we know, and we start at the bottom as a junior or a apprentice and work your way through the ranks in a company, and you observe what's done, and then you end up starting your own company, and you've got no idea how to do the business side of things. You have a great skill set, but I think most of us naively start businesses thinking it's going to be easy, and there's certainly a whole bunch of challenges.
Well,
Go
ahead.
Yeah, tell us about your experience. Obviously, you speak to a lot of people in similar scenarios. What are some of the big things? Yeah.
Well, I started, right out of college because everybody told you had to go to college back in my day, and that was a good idea. And I started out actually in a company, printing company, worked my way up the business, up the corporate ladder till I ran out of rungs. And I was running a $20 million company at the time, and decided that I wanted something else. I wanted to be my own boss instead of work for somebody else, and got into flipping homes. Buying and flipping them, and learned a lot of stuff from that. And eventually, when I left there at my corporate business, I started doing just full-time flipping. And this was back in 2008 and stuff, when stuff was really getting tough too. But in the mid 2011, 12 area, that's when I went on my own. Realized that in my small market I'm in, I run out of houses to flip. So I got into building them too. But what I didn't take away from my own experience, I didn't learn that you just can't do it all by yourself. But I was trying to. We were pouring concrete. We were doing the whole framing thing. I did all plumbing, the whole shebang. And while that's pretty good money, you can't do a bunch of them because you only got so much time in the day. And you're only, if you take your hours into consideration, you're not making much money by hour. So all those things together, I stressed you out a little bit. And I was doing it all in my head. I didn't have anybody helping me. I had some help, don't get me wrong, but I didn't have anybody do the day-to-day stuff, the big picture stuff. So when I got sick, my family took over. Got sick one day, and they misdiagnosed me, basically, and I went back to the hospital emergency room the next day. You walked in, how you get in there, and you walk in, and you got to go check in an ER. Nurse come up to me. She goes, "Come with me." I said, "Well, I haven't checked in yet." She goes, "Honey, we're going to deal with that later." They took me right back there, started taking my clothes off me, shooting me with stuff, putting oxygen on. And I fell asleep, or they put me to, I don't know exactly what happened, but my family was told that if I woke up, I probably had brain damage. And I woke up 2 weeks later, over 100 miles away from where I started from. They took me to St. Louis because they said that I probably would have died if I hadn't made it there. And then woke up from there. Then I found out all the horror stories they were going through. I mean, I didn't have anybody on my checking accounts. It was just me. Nobody was writing checks. I got contractors, people banging on the door wanting paid at that point. So I don't have that problem today. I got all that stuff worked out. I've got bookkeepers. I've got office managers. I've got staff, crews, all that good stuff. So we don't deal with that anymore. So I just want to make sure that everybody doesn't have the same problem I do.
Yeah, and they're great points that you make. Obviously, none of us want a terrible scenario like what you experienced to occur. But even if it doesn't happen, I mean, these things are good to set up just so you can go on a holiday, for example. I mean, or to have a business that's sellable, because if it all relies on you as the key person, it's just so limited in so many ways. So it's limited in its growth, and it's limited in what you can do for holidays and how you spend time with your family and a whole bunch of other things. What do you think that when you sort of came out of that scenario and I guess you started to rebuild how you do business, what were some of the key things you did first to set things up a little better next time around?
Well, I first thing I did was got all my banking straightened out. That way, if something happened, somebody else could write checks. And we're a small community, so we were fortunate enough that they worked everything out with my wife at the time. But she was paying people, didn't know what was supposed to pay, what they weren't going to pay. She wrote checks, and I think she got taken advantage of a little bit just because of their, But she paid them everybody, and it's a costly experience. But the other thing I did was I hired a bookkeeper. So not only my wife was still in charge of writing the checks, but the bookkeeper was, okay, these are legitimate bills that you should pay. And they work together now. I have, since then, I've hired some other people as well. I've got an office manager. That's been a godsend. Looking at the project managers now, I have a project manager in my crews, but we're growing so much, they just can't do it all. So I got an on-site job manager, working for me, who are responsible for things. There are jobs I haven't even been to, just looked at pictures, and which is nice. But I know that as we grow, we need to increase that. So project managers are our next big hire. You have to advertise. We're advertising. Didn't have that before. I got a Filipino advertising agency that takes care of that for me. All that good stuff that you just, if I had to do it all, it wouldn't happen. So
yeah. And so building out a trusted team, that's a whole different skill set in terms of leadership. Team. Yeah. So can you speak to that? What were you a natural leader, do you think, or did it take some learning to do? How did you go about that?
Sometimes, God slaps you upside the head thinking, what do you, so I got to looking at what I did at the other company with my corporate life. And I ran, I was in charge of 150 people, $20 million budget. I had a team there. So I'm incorporating that same philosophy and making those systems work inside my business, my personal business.
Yeah.
My old boss, great guy, he said, well, what do you want your own business for? I said, because I want to be like you and hire somebody like me that can run that business and you don't have to worry about it. And he couldn't argue with that. I want to hire Chris Gilman to run my own business. And while that's important, but you got to be a good leader and then lead those others and let them. I'm not a micromanager. I don't like being micromanaged, and I don't want to micromanage. So I believe in treating people like you want to be treated. And people are more efficient. There's a Henry Ford. I love Henry Ford. If you ever get a chance to read about him, he hired people a lot smarter than he is, and that's what I'm trying to do. I say try, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not a very good human resource person. I trust too much. And so while I don't have an actual HR person on staff, I hire people to hire for me. And that's been a real bonus. Basically, I've hired headhunters to go find the right people, players who know a lot more about it than I do, and who have other experiences than I do. So that's how I'm building my team.
Yeah, and it's so important to have a trusted team. So when you hire people that are better than you, even in the roles in which they're responsible for, you don't have the tendency to micromanage because you know that they're doing a great job, and to have a trusted team around you, even to do the hiring aspect of it. So there's people who specialize in all sorts of fields, and none of us are experts in every field. We might be good at a lot of things, but we won't be great at everything. So to hire people that do that, and so you can delegate, and you mentioned you don't even go to some of the sites that people are working on. You've got people taking care of it, and you
Yeah.
just know that the quality outcome is there. When you are hunting for having someone recruit for you, what are some of the key tips to make sure you do get those A grade people in your company, and to keep them in your company?
Make sure that the person you're hiring to go out understands what you want and have a good conversation with them. Just don't hire them right off the bat. Get understanding. Uh, Before you even have that conversation with those people, you need to write down what you want. Identify the things that you want to take off your plate. Identify the 80-20 rule. What's 20% of the stuff you like to do, and the 80% of the stuff even though you're doing it, what can you turn over to somebody else that you shouldn't be doing? So evaluate that. Ideally, at some point, I want you just doing CEO stuff, or even better yet, even being the investor in your own company, and not hire a COO, Chief Operating Officer, at some point. Now that's down the road, but that's the whole point of. You ever read Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yeah.
And he's got the 4 quadrants, and you go from a self-employed to employee to self-employed to business owner, then to investor. Well, my goal is to get everybody to investor state at the end of the day. I have other assets other than just my business. So you take those funds and create those money trees, and I want you to have an orchard of money trees when it's all said and done. But that being said, you got to have that team that you can trust so that you can go focus on that. To answer your other question, make sure that person, you get that list of things that you want to turn over. Make sure that person understands it. Matter of fact, a really good headhunter starts putting words in your own mouth, and it starts explaining to me what I want. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what I want. And I've been very fortunate there. I've had good people, and it doesn't have to be a headhunter. It could be a job company that, temporary jobs, not temporary as in, you don't got to keep them a while, but they short term, they bring them in, let you work with them for 90 days. If you're happy with them, then you continue on, you take them on full time. But I wouldn't call it a temp agency necessarily, but a employer type company that tells you, here's some samples, here's people you get to interview before they come on, and based on your conversation with your quote unquote headhunter, you know what you're going to get. So first start off with what you think you want, write it down, start talking to somebody else about that. And if they start putting ideas or fill in the blanks before you even get to say it, that's probably a good guy to choose to go look for a person.
Yeah, that's brilliant, and I love that concept you mentioned about building something and eventually becoming the investor in the company. So you're not even involved. I guess at some stage we all need to either retire or move on, and we can keep our businesses. I always think about more so the exit strategy, but you can keep the company.
Yeah, you can keep the company too if it's making money. Why? I thought about a couple different things one time, and I thought, why would I get rid of that if it's making money for me? Now it's something you get tired of, or you get offered something that's you just can't say no to. Okay, that's fine. I just like when you all start running your own companies. You create your own family, and you're not only responsible for your family, you're responsible for your internal family, your business family, and their families as well if relying on you. And it's a big responsibility. And
yeah,
I think over time, I'm not sure. Unless I really felt strongly about who was buying my business from me, that they would take care of my people, that I'm going to get out of it. And you never know, but everybody's different. I think you can get to a point where you're so big that it's better to turn it loose to somebody else or take it to the next level. And that just kind of depends on the business you're in.
Yeah. There's so many. Well, it opens up options if you build out a company that doesn't rely upon you. There's so many there's different ways you can tackle it, and it's not just something that dies when you need to move on and so on. So I think that's awesome. The trust you build in an entity. You would have had team members in maybe not as difficult a scenario that you once faced with ending up in hospital and all that kind of stuff. But challenges happen, and you mentioned the people that you work with are a bit like family as well. How do you cope with that balance? I suppose you need to run a business with the money in mind and all that stuff, but also things happen, and sometimes people need that little bit of extra support. How do you tackle that?
While I'm not sure I recommend it, but I do have family that works for me, and we have that conversation that you might not agree with my decision at the end, but it is my decision at the end, and we all have to move forward. It doesn't mean you don't take their input and consider everything. And that doesn't have to be a family member, even though you're going to see them on the holidays, but even your other staff, take their input. And I tell people that I want them to be so convinced that they're right until I prove them wrong, and vice versa. You need to be open to those options because people think differently. You're hiring good staff, and you're hiring good staff. Why? Because they're smarter than you. Give you reasons why your decision's not the right one, or how they need to be able to express their ideas in a convincing way that why it can be better. And you know what? At the end of the day, if you say, okay, I'm going to try your way and see what happens, test it if you have to. Sometimes you don't have to test everything. It just depends on what it is. But there's nothing wrong with testing. There's nothing wrong with taking other ideas. I like talking about one of my Filipinos, Christine. If you put us on a personality chart, the DISC, D-I-S-C, she's the exact opposite of me. But she sees things that I wouldn't necessarily see because I'm the exact opposite of her. And I have to take those into account that, not all her ideas are bad. And, I never thought about looking at it from that direction. Now, I don't recommend that you get a bunch of people that are opposite of you. I do recommend that they are highly, highly competent in what you're trying to get them to do. Even talk about the COO, if you ever get one. You don't want a person to replace you. You want a person that's going to take the business beyond where you can take it yourself, but still be the owner. So
yeah, it's powerful, isn't it? So if you're open enough to listen to other perspectives, and obviously as the leader, you need to make the final decisions. But we all have blind spots as well, and I suppose that's the beauty of bringing people in, experts in their fields. You speak of people within the organization itself, but also people who have done it before, coaches, mentors, all those sorts of things.
Yeah. So I've got a podcast coach. I have a mindset coach, and I have a business coach. All three have different responsibilities. I actually have a responsibility coach too that drives me. So I got a coach that helps me with the business. I got one that helps me responsible. I got one that keeps my mind clear. And then I have one just specifically for podcasting because everybody else doesn't follow that through. So coaching is very important to me, to anybody for that matter. Especially if you're interested in going forward.
Yeah, if we all want to grow, it's the fast way.
Absolutely.
It's the fast way to get things, moving and in the right direction. People have done the thing you want to do. And even because we're so close to our own material and what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, we just can't see things because we get so busy in what we're doing that we don't know that there's a better way. What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes businesses starting out are making, and what are those blind spots that are common that you see that really need to be addressed?
The biggest mistakes, I think, right off the bat, and you could argue this, is that doing it all yourself. That's the first startup. I've got a 5-tier system that go up. And you got to free up your time and find that time, whether it be hiring somebody internally or hire somebody as a temporary, or find somebody that can do it, like a subcontractor. And you're focused just on the sales, but you got somebody else you trust to do the job. After that, once you get your time freed up, you can focus more on what you should be doing as a company. And then you turn out and you start building your own team. And that team can remain those subcontractors. I have great subcontractors that are, I have a construction business, obviously, we've talked about. And I have some subcontractors that, why would I want to bring it in-house when they take such good care of me? They're part of my team. They know that I rely on them and they take good care of me, and that's good. There are people that we bring in house. I've got Amish crews that frame and build and do everything for me. And those are actually crews of my own that we go get and drive them around. So, but there's also internal people like my office manager, our project managers, bookkeeping, so forth. You just build your team. But once you get that team done, then you focus on the money part. Okay, you got to really focus on knowing your financials. And that's the next step. And every step gets you closer and closer to turning things loose to other people. And then you become, once you do your financials, then you're looking at the profit margin and so forth, getting that money straightened out.
Yeah.
So then now, as a CEO, now you can invest that money and go look for invested assets. And your assets, that could include investing into a coach or so forth. That's what seems to make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. So the money thing. So I think working with a lot of trades and construction businesses and we help them with the marketing. So we do their websites and so on. And we're always trying to figure out what are the most profitable aspects of their business so we can market to those key things because they're the best type of work. If you go for the very best work, you'll get other work by accident, and that's fine too. But market to the very best and the ideal client. But sometimes the people we work with find it really difficult to understand their own numbers and to know which aspects of business are most profitable because it can be difficult sometimes. Do you find most people are managing their finances and money and know the profitability of certain jobs very well, or is that something that is a downfall in some of the companies you have seen?
Some of my clients, that's a downfall. They never planned on that. They planned on, they're either framers or plumbers or something like that. And I don't understand that. Now, there's ways to make it simpler, key performance indicators, certain percentages, look at income statements. We'll set all that up when it comes to the money. But we want that freedom, and you can't look at that stuff without having that team in place and freeing up the time to focus on that. You got to have a bookkeeper because most people are business owners aren't necessarily accountant minded. They're sales oriented. And you look at the personality side of people, I use DISC for example, you could be very driven, you could be a social person, or you could be accountant driven, or you could be an introvert. And even the accountant and the social person, or even the D, all have some sales impact. I mean, you're not always just one letter, you're part of all four actually. But other than this introvert, the other three are really got some sales background in them. They know that they have to do it. But they don't know what the numbers mean. They just know that I got to get sales. They don't realize that having sales is one thing, making a profit's another. And
yeah, that's a good point.
we got to have that money left over, whether for you to grow the current business. I talk about Warren Buffett and everything. Talk about businesses, and even in the stock market, you ever heard people buying back their stock? Well, they buy back their stock because they realize there's no other better place to put that money at it ever. So they buy back their own stock because their own business is going to have a better return than somebody else's business they invest in. So, but you don't know that until you get down to the numbers and look at it and say, okay, where's the best place to have this extra money go to? And that's always important. The profit's important. A plan to grow is important. And how do you need to do that? What kind of budgeting you need? What's a good markup to be at? 5% profit is 5% profit, but should you be at 15? Or is it 5% even over time, even realistic? Or better yet, I like talking about overhead a lot. And we don't have to get into deep overhead costs, but the more sales you can do, the more money you make, just because you're spreading that overhead out over a bigger number. So there's a lot of things to look at when it comes down to it. I do have accounting background as well, and I love looking at numbers. That's just one of the things I enjoy. What ifs and what happens here? What if I do this? Stuff we all have to look at. But at the end of the day, there are people that are smarter than us, including myself. That are better at those number crunching. And because do you want to look at numbers? Absolutely, and maybe once a week, definitely once a month, and sometimes maybe daily, depends on your type of business, but where you're at, what you need to do, and kind of follow that through, and checking your cost versus your actual. There's systems out there for that. Well, like QuickBooks, for example, that can do that right away. There's other softwares, construction softwares that do it. But we talk about softwares a lot, Wes. Software's only good as much as you use it.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of talk about AI and new technology and software and so on, and businesses are adapting. Do you see it changing many of the businesses that you're coming across in the back office? I suppose they can't swing a hammer just quite yet, the robots, but
no. There are a lot of other websites. Softwares out there. Builder Trend's one of them. A Builder Trend's quite expensive, and I don't necessarily recommend it for the beginner, just because of the expense. And there's so much that it can do, and most people won't even use it all. So if you don't have the budget for it, or you're not big enough to use it, one of the things that we're focusing on is using AI for estimating.
Yeah.
And it's not actual estimating. It's kind of give us a ballpark, get the budget in place. Now we do a lot of custom homes. And okay, Mr. Customer, if you got an idea what you want, let's put it in the AI. Let it tell us a budget range of what's going to be in. And for example, if your square footage is 3,000 square foot house, and your budget's not going to, and we split out the number, it says it should be in a range of 300,000. Well, my budget's only 225,000. So okay, well, let's change some things on the spec sheet, get you in that ballpark. Now we don't use it for actual contracts, but we use it for kind of getting this ballpark figure. Where would you start out with a budget for custom homes? That is. Yeah. I have other software. We do barns and barns and horse stables. And that's more of a niche where it's just a frame, and I can get you an actual number from that. It's different software, and we use that for that. But you get so much software, you're not using it all, then you're just paying for subscriptions that you're not going to utilize.
Yeah.
So that's what, like an income statement, we talk about the income statement, looking at your cost expenses. Watch that. Are you paying for software you're not using? I remember back, even when my corporate world, we spent $300,000 on software they were going to use throughout the plan. And they didn't implement it.
Yeah.
It was frustrating. Now, when I was complaining to my boss at the time, he said, "Do you think you can do a better job?" I said, "I think I can." And he called me in on a weekend. I thought, all right, here, I'm either going to get fired or told to shut up. And he came in and offered me the job and said, "You want to be plant manager?" Okay. And one of the first things we did was we had to take that software that was designed to make our lives easier, and we had to implement it. It did so many other things that we never used. And be happy that when I started, and I left, we were 12 million more in sales than when I started that job. So, but we use that software to our advantage.
Yeah. It's a really interesting thing. So sometimes, I mean, we do websites all the time, and sometimes there'll be other things happening so the website will integrate with their back office systems and so on. There was one scenario where a client had invested an absolute fortune in this new fully customized software that was meant to run every aspect of business. They implemented it. The website spoke to that, so the inquiries went through to the right places and all that kind of stuff. So my piece was pretty simple, but behind the scenes, the software was incredible, but no one ever wanted to use it. So that the problem was it didn't really match on the ground what people needed. So you speak of listening to your team members, and sometimes you don't agree, but they wasted so much money just simply because they hadn't spoken to or thought of the end their team members. And so it was all wasted that the team didn't use it. Particularly the sales guys never used the software for what it was introduced for. So I think get the software to match up with what the team actually need. The process and the way in which you work is far more important than the tech that is there to support it. I think it's a common trap with tech that people get locked into an idea where it's not the best outcome.
Well,
I see this all the time.
Builder Trend was very, what do I say, thorough in their sales techniques and very consistent and followed up a lot. And finally, they said, well, what would cause you not to use it? I said, well, hey, my Amish crews don't even have cell phones. Yeah. I was like, I can't use that particular type of software. Now, we do use software here, obviously, internally. And not only do I have Amish crews, I got people that are what they call us English, regular people with don't have the same restrictions that the Amish do that work with my guys, and they have technology that they can use. One of the things that this came from, actually, my business coach. We have just signed up with a new company, starting out, and it's AI and estimating everything. It's a competitor builder trend, and I'm not promoting. I don't get money from neither one of them. But what we're focusing on is the client experience.
Yeah.
Because if you start paying attention to a lot of calls you get, it's more of them wanting, they have questions or they don't know where you're at or why something. And with the client experience, using the software, either communicate with the client, use their portal, they go in and look and see where you're at with their job, and cut back on some of those calls and make it easier for the project manager.
That's the key thing. Everything that should be geared around the client experience, in my opinion. So the way in which we connect as humans and communicate, because people are making a big investment with what you're doing with the custom homes, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to know what's going on, and things outside your control, like the weather turns bad, so a stage might be
what are you going to do now? And schedules. You can control a lot of things, but Mother Nature's not one of them. And they want to know, and I'd be curious too. So even as a manager, you could look at and say, okay, well, our business owner, where am I at today? And a lot of that stuff, and it interacts with QuickBooks, for example. And you can look at your financials, get those daily KPIs, create little dashboards. Dashboard in a car, you look at it real quick. Same thing here. Are you in the green, yellow, or red? Little arrow would just kind of give you a ballpark where you're at for the day.
Yeah, 100%. And so you've got the visibility as the business, but also you're communicating to the end client, customer, what's going on. Everyone's on the same page. Do you kind of suggest a toolbox team meeting once a week, or how do you kind of do that where everyone sort of gets on the same page?
Well, we do daily meetings with my son-in-law, actually, but he's my runner type of thing. He goes around and checks on the crews and so forth. I do have if it's necessary, I'll call in and talk to the crews. Sometimes I check on them daily, just say, how's everything going? Oh, really good. Kind of let it be. If they really need something, they'll contact Chris. The other Chris, my son-in-law name is Chris as well. They call him Little Chris. They call me Big Chris. So, but pretty much they take care of everything. I've got one foreman on site, and he's Amish, and he knows that he oversees the rest of them. That if I have a problem, he knows what I'm going to come to and ask questions for. They all work together. Amish are great, and they're not just Amish themselves, but they work in such a close-knit community that they communicate phenomenally because they don't have technology we have. They just can't pick up the phone and call, and they know everything. And you see them do barn raisings where they get as a group and they build these barns and build their houses for their friends. Somebody has to be in charge, and they know to rely on one person. They all know their job. I call my little worker ants. They go out and they do their thing, and they're not interrupted with technology and so forth. They just build and go to town, and they're amazing to watch. It's a culture that we all grew up on back in the day, and slowly we're getting away from that. But technology, they have to live with it too. I need information. And so they communicate with the guys on the site that have that technology. What else we do? We do, so I've got the daily calls. I do a weekly production call, or not production. We do weekly calls with my office manager, production manager, and Chris. So he'll come in that day and we'll just say where we're at, what's going on. Now the new software, some of that will be resolve some of that because I'll have a schedule online we'd all go look at. But even that, you still have to have communication. What's going on, and you just can't put everything in. It's kind of like texting. I tell my daughters, they text me all the time. I said, I hate texting. It has its purpose. Don't get me wrong, but you can't give your personality through a text, or even through the software. You have inflection. Sometimes you can't tell if somebody's pissed off or happy. It's like I'm not following what we're talking about. So I think it's important not only with the technology, but to have that face to face. Now,
100%. Yeah.
I tell you what the other thing is, though, you have to hold the people accountable for using that technology. If you're paying for it and it's supposed to make it work to make your lives easier, if they're not using it, then you have to hold them responsible.
Yeah.
But also get input from them how it can be used better. That was a big deal too. You can get. I talk a lot about KPIs, but we'll talk about the dashboard or even something simple for budgeting. The guys ought to have an idea what your budget is for that job, or in our case, how many days we planned on you being there. You should be there no more than 5 days. And my God, if they get it done in 3 days, that's beneficial to everybody. The best part is I'm a true believer in profit sharing. I think that creates loyalty, gives them information, gives them, I'm part of the group, I'm part of the team, and we have a loyalty program that we put in place to everybody wins, and it's good. I think it is. I think it's very important.
Yeah.
It keeps people
help you retain your team.
Retain your team, members. And they're part of it. So not only are we sharing some profits, we're sharing input, we're communicating. Talk about being happy clients. You got happy internal clients too, because each group is responsible for the next thing. And we want to ensure that one group goes to another. I went to a client one time, and they were checking the work before they started from the previous company, the previous subcontractor. So what are you doing? Well, we got to make sure everybody did their job right. Like, bullshit. If you're doing, excuse me, but if you got the right subs and use that sub every time, that sub knows what to leave the next job for. Their client's not my client. My client's the homeowner. Their client is the next guy coming in behind you. And their job is to make sure that's done properly. If you can't do that, then I will find another sub that can. Because we want this in and out. Everybody gets paid the same. As the faster they get to their job, the more they're going to make. But we want to make sure everybody's treated right and you take care of the next guy in line.
Yeah, it's so important to have the right people in place that you can trust, and they choose to you choose them, but they choose you back to continue working with you in your team to be chosen. So it's all about being chosen by your clients. Your customers need to choose you as the best in the field, not on price. Hopefully there's a better. You're selling because you're providing a great service. But also, the clients choose you, your team members choose to continue working with you because you've set up foundations really well. Love what you're doing. It sounds like a really great way in which you've built after obviously the really difficult time that you faced. You rebuilt in a really powerful way. What's is there anything we haven't covered that we should have covered, do you think? And before we close out and tell people how to find out more about you?
I guess the last thing I want to talk about is freedom. Is that the whole point here is to free up your time to do what you want to with it, whether it be with the family, whether it be with the business, whether it be going out and look for other assets, whatever that is. You want to free up your time and your efforts. Spend the time with the family, whatever it is. So that's
Yeah,
really what, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do. And that's my goal for you guys. So.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I've heard it said that when you start a business, you're free to work any 80 hours a week that you want, which ideally you won't do that forever. When we start businesses, we do invest a fair bit of time in getting it up and running, but it's no long-term strategy for long-term success.
Before I got sick, I was working a lot of hours, daylight to dawn, literally. And because I had to get the concrete done, I had to get this done, I had to get that done for the next day coming up. And I don't do that today. And matter of fact, my brothers make fun of me. They don't think I have a job at all. Like, what are you doing? You're retired? I said, no, I'm doing podcasts. I enjoy this type of stuff, but I know that I trust other guys that are doing it for me. So
that's awesome that you're freed up to do that, to do what you love, which is what the goal is. It should be the goal for all of us, to be freed up to spend more time on the things that we love. Thanks so much, Chris. And how do people find out more about what you're up to and connect?
They can always go to hardhatceo.com, and there's obviously a place if you want to talk to me about how to do the things we talked about today. That's free. You can also go to Hard Hat CEO on YouTube, and I got a YouTube channel, all my podcasts, all my interviews and so forth. We do that as well. So YouTube and the website.
That's awesome, Chris. I'll put that in the show notes as well, obviously, so people can find that nice and easy. Thanks again for your time on the call today. I really appreciate having you today.
Been great, Wes. I appreciate it very much. God be with you.
Thank you.